All right, so here is a standard back box for a camera. How we would typically use these is if you needed a camera, if you needed a camera to go right up against a wall, or either ceiling or wall or whatever it happened to be, there's not a lot of room for your connections behind here. So you want, to give yourself a little more room. You would get a back box. This isn't the perfect size for that one. It's actually made for a dome camera, but you get the idea. So all your connections would sit in this back box, and your camera cable, your Cat 5e or your Cat 6 would come into this hole, and then you would ideally it's set upside down, so any water that comes in would leak out, but you can also silicone around this. Your camera would sit in here. Typically these will have a gasket, and then you could also put some silicone in between the camera and the back box, for 3/4 of it type of thing, and then leave a little bit not siliconed at the bottom so some water can drip out. And then you could also silicone the back. So these actually give an option for wiring to come in the back as well. So say you punched a hole into a house or a building, you could sit this right there. The Cat 5 cable going back to your video recorder comes in here. You don't need to worry about this bottom one. The camera sits on and all your connections are housed in there, and then silicone a little bit so that you kind of protect the any water or snow or anything getting in there. So that's a standard back box. So earlier when I was going over the dome cameras, I talked about these different kind of mounts where you can have them set to be, the dome camera goes underneath here. So this is kind of ideal if either you want to get away from the wall a little bit, or you want to protect maybe a dome camera and protect it from the elements. Plus these are also good if you want to let people know that there's a camera there. They're a little more, they're a lot more visible type of thing if you wanted to use it as a deterrent for people. So all these little back boxes twist off. So your cabling would all get concealed in here. Dome camera would come in. You would, secure this to the wall, and that's good to go there. And that's a good way to use one of those full mounts. And then so there's other mounts that are just called pendant. This is a huge pendant mount. It's not just for cameras, these are for other electronics as well. But a pendant mount would sit down from the ceiling off of a pole. It might be an electrician's standard EMT, like a steel pole coming down from the roof, and then camera goes underneath. Your connections are housed inside, and then there's just a threaded rod that connects to the standard steel EMT, and then it's connected at the roof. So that's a standard pendant mount. But there's also, if you don't want to use one of those electrician's standard steel conduits, you can use something called, these are Clinton Electronics makes these, but it allows you to extend these. So you can, your camera, there's a little attachment that threads onto these, and then you can extend it to whatever you want. And then at the top, these can clamp down around some steel conduit, or not conduit, some steel bracing on, like these are usually used for like a commercial application where you go up to the roof, and then the steel rafters up there, it would just clamp down and secure that way. And then you've also got this kind of safety threaded steel as well, in case something happened where it loosened or whatever. It's also got this steel cable. So that is basically an extension pole. You can get these in, 2 to 3 feet or 6 to 10, 12 feet. Anyway, they got different kinds. But this is basically, coming off the roof into a pendant mount, and then your camera sits below the pendant mount. So those are some of the basic mounts that we use for these cameras. depending on your application, you know, you pick one or the other, or you know, you might just want to use the camera and go right to the wall, and then make the hole big enough going into the building where you can just feed your connections actually into the building. You know, you might, in that situation, you've got to make your hole big enough, probably 7/8 of an inch or 15, 16, even a 1-inch hole, so that your connections can go into the wall, and then these sit directly on the building. So there's a bunch of different options there depending on your situation, but that's basically how to mount the different mounts and that type of thing. Okay, thanks.